Welcome to News Cafe. I'm Jing Saysay. We're going to talk about the ever-expanding role of media in our society, its significance and influence on Filipinos, and the difference of the Pinoy brand of journalism, how ratings-based reporting has changed the way we do the news.
Sa karanasan ko po, tila ba nakasanayan na ng media ang magpaulan ng batiko sa mga lumalabas sa balita. Allergic po yata ang iba sa good news. Kung di man iiwasan ng mga ito, ay hahanapin naman nila ng masamang anggulo. Bilang maalagad ng katotohanan, ang responsibilidad po ng mga mamamahayag ay ilatag ang dalawang panig ng anumang kwento mula sa tiyak at beripikado nitong pinagmulan. Tulad po ng binanggit ko, nagmumula sa mga isinusulat at tinuulat ninyo ang nakukuhang impormasyon ng publiko. Dito nabubuo ang kanilang mga pananaw at paniniwala. Kung patas ang ating pagbabalita at naipararating din natin sa mga Pilipino ang buong katotohanan, kasama na ang mabubuting nangyayari sa bansa, hindi ba tayo rin naman mga Pilipino ang makikinabang?
Last Tuesday, the FOI bill was passed by the House Committee on Public Information, even without the controversial right of reply provision. The FOI bill basically means giving the public and media unprecedented access to all government documents and transactions. How will it affect media's delivery of the news? And will this result in a more vigilant citizenry in anti-corruption efforts?
Well, but it is not yet the total victory that we want. The total victory, of course, is when the Freedom of Information Act is enacted into law. Kaya malayo pa tayo. Ang bola ngayon ay nasa majority floor leader and of course, in consultation with the Speaker on how we will schedule the plenary debates on the Freedom of Information.
Sa karanasan ko po, tila ba nakasalanan ng media?
Media educators are working hard to defend press freedom. We will ask these questions and more from our guest panelists, a veteran journalist and opinion columnist, probably the widest read in this country, from the Philippine Daily Inquirer, with his column, There's the Rub. Welcome, Mr. Conrado de Quiros. And a veteran journalist that spans more than 40 years, tagal na. A former editor of the Manila Times and Manila Chronicle, he's now the publisher and editorial board chairman of Business World and the trustee of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. Welcome, Mr. Vergel Santos. Conrad Vergel, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And Tiyempo, kasi the House just passed at the committee level the Freedom of Information Bill. Conrad, let's start with you.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I've always welcomed the idea of an FOI. Wag lang yung may right of reply.
Bakit?
I've always said that. Sabi ko, yes to yung FOI, but no to right of reply. And yung FOI, it's a very fundamental law. I think it empowers the people. If you're going to make a law, kasi marami akong naririnig sabi, ba't natin kailangan ng FOI? Okay naman yung gobyerno natin ngayon, matino eh. Medyo fairly transparent naman. But ang point ko is that if you're going to make a law, it has to apply not just to this government, but to all governments.
Correct.
The ones that are going to follow.
Institutionalize.
So, kung magkaroon ka na naman kagaya ng gobyerno, kagaya ng the previous one, na maraming tinatago, you're going to have problems. So you need an FOI, even with this government, particularly in application to mga subsequent governments. And also because it's important. I think it empowers the people.
That's a very
It gives
interesting,
them access to really important information which they did not have during the past administration.
very interesting point that you brought up, Conrad. The people and media. Why is everybody else making this about media, Vergel?
You know, I really thought that it would not pass.
Okay.
Because it's a battleground between power and freedom.
Okay.
And the Freedom of Information Bill necessarily would affect people, the powers that be. And therefore, probably logically wouldn't want something like that passed. But then again, such a law simply has to be passed. It's about public information in the first place.
Correct.
You know? So dapat malaman natin pare-pareho yan. Ako, nung makita ko yung public information, dahil merong sanction doon sa keepers ng information, sabi ko, I can live with it. No? Kasi kailangan talaga natin yan eh. In the first place, public information yan, dapat talagang malaman lahat yan eh.
There's a version written by Congressman Antonino that has a right of reply.
Ay, wala yun. Yung right of reply, walang ano dyan. No compromise at all.
Yeah, no compromise there.
Hindi po pwede.
Kailangan ba sa media
Ang right of reply?
ang right of
Not
reply?
at all. I've written about it several times actually. Unang-una, yung public officials do not lack for any means of right of reply. Pagka naman sinabi nila yung side nila, pinapublish naman ng media. Hindi pinapublish o ini-air ng media. Kapag nagsulat sila letters to the editor, binibigyan ng priority. And sinabi ko nga doon, they have, ang congressmen and senators have something that media does not have. A very, very powerful instrument by which they can say whatever they want. Privileged speech. Magsalita sila, nobody can question that. They can lambast anybody, they can say the most libelous things. Wala kang right of reply sa kanila. Bakit ini-insist nila yan sa media na magkaroon ng kanya? Pangalawang problema mo sa right of reply, it reposes judgment about tama ito o mali ito, offensive ito o hindi, sa public officials. That has to be editorial judgment. Huwag kang makialam dyan. You do not repose that right or that judgment na this is right and this is wrong sa public officials. That's very dangerous.
But is that to say media is not at fault?
No, it is, in the first place, it is, it should be in the editorial advice of the media whether the media want or not to publish one's reply. Pakialam yun no? It has nothing to do with that. I mean, the law itself has taken that into consideration. Ang sinasabi nila is that hindi lang para sa amin yan, para sa lahat ng tao. Really? You go out there in the street, you talk to a man, does he really have any chance of landing in the newspaper? It's for you, kaya yung gusto yan. Pero hindi dapat. Kamukha na sinabi ni Conrad, you can discourse to your heart's content na hindi ka, nang walang magagawa ang kahit na sinong tinira mo. Bakit yung gagawin yan? Pero kami hindi pwedeng tumayo ron para sagutin sila.
Apparently, media has changed since the Marcos years, especially after the Aquino, the Corradino administration.
The freedom is tremendous. Pero kung tinatanong mo na, is media also at fault? Arguably, yes. Media can be abusive. Tapos, ang daming problema ng media. Yung sensationalism, yung corruption in media, all those things are there. But yung right of reply does not make things better. It makes things worse. Yun yung problema eh. To be able to cure these things, I think you have to rely on yung mga matitinong tao dun sa loob ng media. There's got to be that. Marami rin naman matitinong sa media and they think they can raise a collective voice to criticize and to scorn, to even to damn yung mga maling practices ng media. But you cannot have public officials doing that for media. That's dangerous.
And the privilege is open to abuse. Ano naman natin yan Ang kulang lang sa media, the media have not yet taken it upon themselves to criticize one another. Yun ang problema ng media. And to that extent, probably, media are seen as themselves an old boys club. May pagkaganon. Pero kailangan, sabi ko nga, the line should be drawn between us and them. The media should do that. And I think, gagawin ng media yan.
Does the media focus more on bad news than good news? The president always keeps saying this.
Yeah, well, it's part of the deal kasi. Parang, most of the time naman talaga, news is bad news.
Exactly.
Lalo sa bansang ito. I'm not beyond talking about, I don't even think in terms of bad news or good news. Some stories are just worth publishing and airing. It's not even because it's good or bad. Well, to some people, it may look like, why na puro kasamaan yung nilalabas natin. But that's part of the deal. It's how you see things. Some people may see it as bad. Other people, ang feeling ko, I'll give an example. Some years back, yung community sa Hong Kong, nagprotesta because yung mga probe daw, they wanted probe, stop from being aired sa Hong Kong. Kasi sabi nila, pedophilia, yung mga garbage sa Maynila, yung mga patayan, yung mga rape, ganyan. So sabi it's giving us a bad name. Sabi ko, why should it? And nangyayari, in the first place, these things happen in this country. So how can you suppress them? Secondly, sabi ko, the fact na mayroon kang freedom of the press is good news in itself. Hindi ba the fact na dito sa amin sa Pilipinas, so lumalabas yung mga ganyan. Sa inyo, kung minsan, maraming nangyayari dito, hindi nilalabas, takot kayo. That by itself is good news.
What does media have to do?
Well, in the first place, news is about the truth in the public interest. Yun ang pag-usapan. And who decides in this case kung ano ang should be in the public interest? Yung media. Ano namin yan eh. Teritoryo namin yan eh. Now, it becomes good or bad depending on how you see it, as Conrad would say. So walang bad or good news. Meron lang news.
Ang presumption kasi dyan, I think, is that if you're in media, may fairly objective wala ka namang interest na sarili. Theoretically, of course,
Theoretically.
with corruption and everything
yeah.
else, may mga which is what makes corruption condemnable. Pero theoretically, pag nasa media ka, you're supposed to be objective. Wala ka namang vested interest eh. So you're the ideal person to make the judgment. Pag nilagay mo sa public official, may vested interest. You want to be re-elected, you want to have all this power and so on. Hindi mo pwede ibigay sa kanya yung right to make those judgments.
But is media playing its role as it should?
Oh, I think so. I think so. To an extent. Of course, everybody would like the media to do better, as any other profession and institution for that matter. Pero we can all only try. Lahat naman yan eh. Lahat naman yan ganyan eh. Kahit na anong profesyon eh. Sabihin mo, may salbay sa mga profesyon. Lahat naman yan meron eh.
Hindi pwede lahatin.
Oh, it depends. I think naman, currently, media are trying the best that they can to do things right. Na gawin naman na maayos yung kanyang gampanan, yung kanyang role. The problem, however, is standards. Ang baba kasi ng standards natin dito. Tingnan mo yung karaniwan. Also because of the way, napaka-adman out natin dito sa yung media natin compared to other Asian countries. The first thing that I was surprised about, na other people pointed out to me, sa pag-attend ko ng mga media conferences is, sa Pilipinas, yung opinion page, kung minsan, it's about 2 pages, kung minsan 3. You even have a newspaper na puro opinion lang. In other countries, yung opinion page is just 1 page. And the rest is news. And look what happens. Dito sa atin kasi, pagka reporter ka, ang baba ng bayad sa'yo, ang trato sa reporter actually parang parang messenger. They send you out pagkatapos to get the story, tapos bibigay mo lang yung bare outlines, tapos i-edit ng editor, and it comes out. By the time it comes out, nabago na. Other countries, pag sinabi mo reporter, ang taas ng station yan,
Yes,
Time Magazine, Newsweek, the various papers, New Yorker, pag sinabi mo, I'm a reporter for it, mataas yung rango mo.
Okay.
Dito, anong nangyayari dun sa opinion page? It's really the news. It's the inside. Ito actually sabihin.
Ito actually nangyayari.
Yeah, sabihin, di ba? Ito actually nangyayari doon, which is supposed to appear in the news pages.
And the front
That
page.
one should have been reported by the reporter to begin with.
Okay, we'll talk about standards. Still have plenty to discuss. When we get back, we'll discuss the FOI bill and how it will affect media. News Cafe. We'll be right back. And we're back. You're still watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. We're still joined by our guests, Conrad De Quiros and Perhel Santos. And joining us via phone patch is the author of the FOI bill, Representative Aaron Tañada. Aaron, hi. How are you? And how do you feel about the committee passing your bill?
Well, let's say it's not total victory. It's just one step forward. And I feel that it should have been passed quite sometime earlier, no? But okay, we've done it, and I just hope that we get a schedule at plenary as soon as possible to give it a chance. But it's not. I don't think it's looking really that good that we'll be able to pass it on third reading. But I'm still hopeful.
Congressman Antonino feels bad that his right of reply isn't included in the version that was passed by the committee.
Well, like I explained in the committee yesterday, that no one should feel bad to make the committee consider them. They can still brace it up in plenary. That was the point that I was trying to make even in the last hearing.
Do you think it's going to pass third reading?
Let's say there's still time, because I think what both chambers are looking at right now, first is to ratify the sin tax. If ever I'll be given a chance to defend the bill in plenary, would be the FOI.
If it does pass, what form will it take in the end?
It's the consolidated substitute bill, which includes recommendations by the study group of Malacanang during the technical working stage of the bill. It doesn't have a right of reply, and I think, of course, Congressman Antonino will take his spotlight when the period of amendments comes in plenary.
All right, Congressman Tañada, thank you for joining us. Thanks.
Thank
Eric.
you, Jim.
I'd like to quote from your column, Conrad. The media have their share of faults. The media have their share of oppressions. Some will say more than their share. But like the choice of national artists, which is best left to artists, however, they are capable of pettiness too, the determination of news is best left to journalists. However, they are prey to corruption too. They still count enough respectable members in their ranks. I know that idea sucks, particularly when you see the ragged crowd that goes to vote for the officials of their favorite organizations. But again, it's like democracy. It's a horrible idea, except that others are worse. That's from August 1. So pabayaan na lang tayo sa negosyo natin. Ganun ba? Is that what you say?
Hindi naman. I think media ought to be criticized where criticism is deserved.
Okay.
Hindi, talagang I think dapat, and I think it can come from the public as well. Letters to the editors and even from social media, I think, which has been critical in many ways of mainstream media. Pero do not repose that right sa public officials. Yun nga, paulit-ulit ako dyan because that's very dangerous. And even government.
You brought up an interesting point kanina before the gap, Conrad. You said the quality of journalism and the quality of journalists in this country now. That's a problem.
It is. It is.
And Vergel, how do you solve things like that? Maturity of our journalists.
Education in all forms.
But in the meantime,
well, the levels of skills, the levels of understanding, the levels of cross-disciplinary understanding, mababa talaga. Ano? But then ganyan talaga yan. This is a democracy is like that. Ano? But the thing is that if you pass a bill like the right of reply, it sets back the freedom trend. Ano? Masama yan eh. No? Now, yung FOI is pushing that trend.
how is social media affected? Go ahead,
I'd like
Conrad.
to add to that. Ako lang, ang suggestion ko rito, very practical, improve the reportorial pool. Alam mo, yung impact niyan will be very, very vast. Ang problema nga natin talaga, yung tingin natin sa reporter, mababa eh. Binabayaran mo ng barya-barya yung reporter, tapos you don't really expect him to get all the facts and to get all the right interpretation. Ini-expect mo yan to happen sa editors, sa level ng editors. Dito sa atin, kukorektin ng editor, tapos the columnist will come out with the real story. Doon pa lang, nandun na yung problema about, kaya nagre-reklamo si Pinoy, for instance, media get things wrong. In many ways, yes. Yung reporter, yung nag-report, niretoke mo sa desk. Twice removed na kaagad yan. Even with the best of intentions, you don't get the facts, you don't get the nuances right. Palakasin mo yung reportorial pool, and you will get the facts right.
Do you think that this has caused a tremendous effect, has had a tremendous effect on the industry as a whole?
Oh
the
yes.
Quality of reporting?
This is very much in the nature of the practice today. You know,
Sensational.
yes, situational. Alam mo, it's the editors build reputations of reporters, whether good or bad. Ganun nangyayari. Unlike, but of course it's not easy, especially today that reporting has become a more difficult job to do today than ever before, because nga you'll have to bring to bear all cross-disciplinary understanding on issues. Mahirap talaga yan. Pero kung ititrain mo talaga na gano'n ang gawin, at maghahanap ka talaga ng, you will look for this certain quality of practitioners, pwede yan. Babayaran mo lang ng maayos. Na.
And this comes at a time when social media is changing the way news is being consumed.
That's right. That's right. Pero on the whole kasi, yung standards nga yan, sa other countries, pag reporter ka, ang ambition mo, to write books na non-fiction o kaya maging novelista. Eh dito, ambition mo maging column writer. Reporter ka, ambition mo maging column writer. And no offense meant to have your own shows.
Right.
Hindi ba parang ganyan ambition na, ang trajectory natin iba eh.
How has social media affected the
Ay,
industry?
grabe. Kanina you were asking how do you improve mainstream media? I think social media is helping there. Of course, social media, garbage in, garbage out. Any form of democracy naman talaga, it's positive in the sense na everybody gets to contribute. But everybody gets to contribute, bumababa din siyempre yung common denominator mo. Becomes the least common denominator. But I think, yung mga mahusay na blogs in particular, are helping correct yung mga story. Nakaka-challenge ng mainstream media. Pag mali yung reporting ng mainstream media, mako-correct ng mga blogs. And I think yung the social media enables the public to participate directly. So, tingnan mo, Wikipedia. Yung dating encyclopedia natin, tapos na yan, that's gospel truth. Nakasulat na yan, written in stone. Eh, Wikipedia, pwede mo i-challenge and it will change it.
Yeah.
Hindi ba? Facts are no longer absolute gospel truth. They can be challenged.
I will also read a portion from Verhel's article in the cmfrphilippines.org dated September 21. And I quote, "Indeed, the power to sanction the media has been taken from the public that rightfully possesses it by those whom the media and that public should be allied against in the first place. That power, the power has been lost to the government and the rest of the powers that be. Lost, that is, by all manner of default, of which default in education is the most grievous. The principle governing their relationship is not complex. Really, as the media's own market, the public has the power to sanction them. But as protector of its interests, the media deserves its support too. It's hard to draw the line between sanction and support that public could use some enlightening on." That's from your column.
Yes, I think so. The public can use some enlightening itself, but that's how it is. You'll have to raise the quality of understanding across the board. I mean, hindi naman pwedeng kayo lang eh. So, yun ang problema. But
what I'd like, public?
What I'd like to say is that kung meron mang, if there is anyone who has the power and indeed the right to sanction the media, is the public. It is the market.
Right.
No? So, yung iba wala dyan.
Do you think, Conrad, the public is behaving the way it should towards media, the kind of media that they're getting?
Yeah, and I think well, unang-una, I think yung social media, cable TV and so on, ang laki ambag niyan generally to making the public smarter. So it's improving media then basically. For instance, sa atin naman we say ng pangit ng natin coverage ng mga elections. But we see something on CNN, kagaya ng coverage nila ng last election sa US. Hindi ba talaga, may inggit ka rin naman. It forces you to do better. Yeah. And I think also the public itself, nakakatulong yun eh. Parang aayawan ka ngayon eh. Ang daming choices ng public ngayon. Correct. The blogs, the mainstream media, cable TV. Yes. It's all over the place. Including yung Facebook and so on. You can get your information ngayon kung saan-saan. But hindi ka magtsatsagaan if you produce something that's really trashy. Hindi ka magtsatsagaan ng publiko.
Yes. The social media are part of the public itself,
The choices are far more enormous than at any time in our history.
The landscape, the consumer landscape, is surely changing the way media is because of the way people consume media. News Cafe will take a short break. When we come back, we will discuss on the reforms that media needs to do, if at all. Stay tuned.
the ball is also in the hands of media. Because if you look at the arguments of the advocates for the right of reply provision, ang binabanata nila ay yung media irresponsibility. Sana makakatulong rin kayo kung magpalabas rin po kayo ng statements on how you police your ranks, how you make sure that in your editorial policies and in your reporting it's always fair.
And we're back. You're still watching News Cafe on the Solar News channel. Your reaction, Conrad. Police our own ranks.
Oh, on a day-to-day basis, there's an attempt. Alam ko lahat ng news outfits, mga 5 o'clock in the afternoon or so, pinag-uusapan yan. Story conference. Where you try as best you can to do something like that. Of course, meron pa rin mga pagkakamali dyan eh. Hindi mo tatanggal yan. Pero again, the problem is, who is going to make the determination na tama o mali yan? Pag ginawa mo yung public officials, it becomes dangerous. That's why yung right of reply is problematic.
The quality of journalists, Ferhel. By and large, I personally feel that we're still getting the stories right.
Oh yes, I think so too. I mean, you know, there are layers of check, in place, because this is an organized. This is a vetted practice. So merong layers of check, and this is beside the point on whether we are doing it or not. The point is that the government has nothing to do with it. I mean, people like them should have nothing to do with it at all. Because apart from our own, the checking that we do ourselves, there is the public, there is the market, that is supposed to keep us honest. But sabi nga ni Conrad, all the same, may lulusot pa rin dyan. Talaga namang ganun eh.
But we're talking about news. We're not talking about opinion.
Yeah.
Kasi in this country, opinion has become news.
Yeah. That's the particularity dito. That's what makes it weird. Na dapat, much of what appears sa mga columns really, parang in fact, this is really the news behind the news. Hindi naman talaga mga opinion yan eh. It's the news behind the news. Dapat palakasin mo yung reportage pa lang from the start. Pero Verhel is right there. Okay pa naman yung you have outfits like Center for Investigative Journalism. You have the blogs that can correct. Ang feeling ko, a democracy is a marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
The best idea will really, at some point, dictate the terms of, quality will really, rise on top at some point. That's the whole concept of democracy.
Is it okay that news organizations are redefining news? Magiging opinion.
Well, alam mo, sa akin, whether may opinion dyan o wala, o marami opinion dyan sa news, really makes no difference to me. Ang pinag-usapan dito is quality, because in certain cases, given the nature of the times today, the times are very complex. You will require certain people rereading and giving their opinions on the news. Talagang iba eh. Unlike before, when times were really simple and easy, I was a 17-year-old reporter and I got by, because I only reported the spot news. Yeah. But not anymore. We are expected to do more as journalists because the times have become so complex. So, and because of that, we precisely need a higher and higher levels of skills and understanding to be able to practice right. It's catch-up. It's a catch-up game. It's always like that.
Are we?
If you mean by redefining the news, I've seen that some networks really, in the middle of the news, nagko-comment. That's really it's redefining things.
And you see main anchors
in a really bad way.
And you see main anchors, news anchors that have that are commentators.
Yeah, and that
as well.
I disagree with talaga completely. I think that's not a good idea. What you're looking for is really something in between. Natatandaan ko rin yung yung panahon namin, pagka news yan, normally walang byline kasi the assumption is it's an objective reality na ganyan. Over time, nakita naman ng mga tao na there's no such thing as an absolutely objective reality. Kasi anything that you report, even when your facts are straight, requires some kind of interpretation. Hindi ba, anong nangyari, anong significance itong event and so on. So eventually makita mo, most newspapers, tapos most magazines, may byline na. This is by this person kasi this is the assortment of facts as he saw it and as he interpreted it. and as he interpreted it. Pero on the other hand, hindi naman pwede na from here, na may interpretasyon ka, mag-editorialize ka. That's another step entirely.
yes,
That's another leap, and that's wrong.
Oops, madaling
That's
tawid
wrong.
yun.
Yes.
That's wrong.
Very easy to cross that line.
Yun ang nangyayari
Yung
sa atin.
interpretation
I think
tsaka yung opinion, iba yun eh.
Iba yun.
Iba yun. Ano ha? Interpretation is based on facts. Yung opinion, yung interpretation is simply reading. reading the facts. Ano? Yung opinion is thinking on the facts. You know?
Oh, it's presenting,
Iba yun eh.
it's presenting, ganito yung tingin ko dyan, and this should be done.
Tsaka, pag nag-opinion ka, lalawig na yan eh. Yung interpretation, hindi. May limit ka nyo, hanggang dyan ka lang. Yung opinion, hindi.
Okay, as a final question, are we doing our jobs, and what should we do about media if there is something that should be done, Conrad?
Gaya kung sabi ko nga kanina, we're trying as best as we can to do our jobs. Maraming kakulangan. And that's where you need a lot of things na. I think yun nga, dapat strengthen natin yung reportorial pool so that we just get the facts straight. Tapos, dapat nga, and for that to happen, I think dapat taasan naman yung pagtingin dun sa reporters. Taasan mo yung sweldo, kumuha ka ng mga reporters na may tamang qualifications. Hindi basta-basta nang kukuha ka saan-saan. I-raise mo yung standards ng reporters. And I think it will help greatly. Doon pa lang, I think, ang laki ng mangyayari na to improve media.
But are we delivering?
Right
Today?
now?
Yeah?
I guess slowly.
Well, the Philippine presidency one time asked if I could devise a way of measuring the suitability or quality of journalists. So because I think I can to a certain extent. No, but you owners and editors will have to agree. This is how we're going to do it. But this is precisely to determine what we need. Walang nangyari na problema. You'll have to get these people to agree that something like this is needed.
But are we delivering?
To an extent, I think we are. I mean, it's just not something that you can deliver wholesale and quickly. No, hindi naman. Mahirap talaga yan eh.
All right, Verhel, thank you very much for coming.
My
Salamat.
pleasure.
And Conrad, what a way to kick off a show with Conrad and Verhel. And that's all the time we have for today. We'd like to thank our guests for being with us. Thanks very much. Don't forget to add us on Facebook and Twitter. Join us again next Friday for another 360-degree discussion right here on News Cafe. I'm Jing Magsaysay. Salamat po.
Sa karanasan ko po, di na ba nakasanayan na ng media?